What's going on, everybody? David here, back with another video. So today we're going to talk about five things stimulus. So I think, I'm going to start probably calling this segment Five Things Stimulus because it makes sense. But we're gonna show you some videos. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on when it comes to the executive order. This is going to be mainly about the executive order, not that much about stimulus checks, but I will talk a little bit about that. Because it does come up or it doesn't come up, which is kind of interesting. So we'll talk about that. And then at the very end, we're going to have that silver lining story, that good news. Now, I will admit this good news is more promising news, and it might be something that we might see in the future, but not right now. This is something that would happen maybe early next year. So we'll talk about that. But first, please, if you could hit that thumbs up button, give the video a like. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell notification. We do videos every day as well as live streams. We usually do about 3 to 4 live streams a week, so you don't want to miss anything. So please subscribe to the channel. So the first thing I want to talk about is the enhanced unemployment. So the memorandum for the enhanced unemployment. Now, when we looked at the actual language, and even before then, we knew that it was going to be $300 from the federal government and then $100 from the state. Now it looks like the states do not have to put in that $100, so they don't have to put that 25%. And so the federal government, they will be sending the $300. The states can do what they want. So they can put $100, they can put $200, $300, whatever they want to put in, they can. States were pushing back on the federal government, pretty much saying, look, we don't have the money to put this additional 25%, and that was a requirement initially. So now the federal government's just saying, okay, that's fine. If you don't have the money, we'll just send the $300. Now, there was some talk a couple of days ago. President Trump was putting it out there like if a state can't afford to put the $100 in, the additional $100, then they would go ahead and front it and put $400 in. But it looks like now it's going to be $300. They don't want to go any higher than that. I think the main reason for this is because they only have a certain amount of money, for like about $44 billion. And so that money will run out very, very fast. Like we're talking 4 to 5 weeks. So to recap, the federal government will be contributing $300, and then the state, it's up in the air. So some states might contribute, some states might not. So you can bank on the $300, but that's kind of where it's going to end when it comes to enhanced unemployment. So we'll just have to follow this story and see where it goes. The next story I want to talk about, President Trump. So President Trump had a press conference yesterday, and here's what he said. This is part of what he said in the press conference.
Executive orders that you signed, are we now unlikely to see any more stimulus legislation before the election?
Well, we're giving $400, and we are in constant touch with governors also, who they'll be making perhaps a contribution. They have options. They can do it or they don't have to do it. I think most of them will do it. We're also doing a payroll tax cut, which is a massive number. That's a very big number. And that's a number that's bigger than any of the numbers we talked about. And the beauty of that is it really incentivizes companies, and because it's both a company cut and a employee cut, so that really very much incentivizes people to go back to work and work hard, and the company to hire people back. And we've had some of the great economic minds saying that's the most important cut. That would be the best cut you could do. We couldn't get the Democrats to even think about agreeing to it. It's not the Democrat way, I guess, because it just seems that whether it's Larry Kudlow or any of your many friends, that's the one they wanted the most. Would you say, Larry? And so we're doing that, and that was never even really discussed because that was taken off the table by the Democrats immediately. And this is every week. Every week you get a check, or a month, or biweekly. This is a major amount of money that you're getting directly. So it's really, it's a very big number. It's a very substantial number. And this is, don't forget, this is in addition to the $400. And this is a big number. And now at the end of the year, the assumption that I win, I'm going to terminate the payroll tax, which is another thing that some of the great economists would like to see done. We'll be paying into Social Security through the general fund, and it works out very nicely.
All right, so you saw that. Now, he said a lot and I'm not going to be able to go over everything that he said. I don't want to break it down that much because this would be a 30-minute video. But the key points there, he's talking about the different things. He's talking about the payroll tax cut or the payroll tax deferral, and he continues to say that he will terminate the payroll tax, and so he doesn't have the power to do that, but he does continue saying that. I don't know if this is something maybe he's saying just because he thinks it will help earn him some points when it comes to an election, but that's one of the things he keeps putting out there. Now, Stephen Mnuchin, we'll play a clip from Stephen Mnuchin later on, and he'll kind of outline exactly what will have to transpire as far as legislation in order for this to happen. But so he talks about that. He talks about the enhanced unemployment. He's saying $400. It's not $400. It's $300 from the federal government, like I previously said, and then it will be whatever the state wants to contribute. So he's still putting some of the same talking points out there. It's unfortunate because we are in a situation right now where people are desperate and we want to get the most accurate information. And you have the president saying one thing, you have the Treasury Secretary saying another thing, you have Larry Kudlow saying something else, you have Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer saying other things. So we just want to know the truth. We just want to know what's going on. So right now, when it comes to the executive order, I mean, the way the president was talking, he thinks that this is enough to get him through the election. And you saw the question was, will we see another stimulus package before the election? And he did not answer that question. He just went into the executive order stuff. So we'll have to see where it goes. But at this point, this is where we are. And like I said, Stephen Mnuchin does answer some of these questions or contradicts actually what the president just stated. So we'll check that out in a couple of minutes. So the next clip I want to show you is Mitch McConnell. So now Mitch McConnell is showing a sense of urgency. He's saying we're in a crisis. We need to get things done. But understand, he wanted to wait and see in May. He wanted to wait and see in June. He wanted to wait and see in July. He wanted to go on their recess. And then when they came back from their recess, that's when they wanted to see what a proposal looked like. So they went ahead and put that proposal through. It didn't come through until July 27th. And so now we're about 2.5 weeks later, and he's very upset because we're in a crisis and the Democrats don't want to do anything. So let's go ahead and take a look.
Democrats and White House negotiators reportedly not speaking since last Friday. This despite Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin saying that the White House is, quote, prepared to put more money on the table. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell calling out Democrats for not finding any middle ground.
Families are suffering. Americans are dying. It would serve the nation better if the Democratic leaders would act like it's a crisis.
Now, I mean, that's all the clip. That was Fox Business. And it's amazing to me the way that he is talking, because we were asking for this. And I say we, I'm talking about the stimulus check party. We were asking for this long time ago. The fact that the HEROES Act was approved by the House on May 15th and sent over to the Senate, and it just sat there and they didn't do anything with it for 2.5 months, it just blows my mind that now he's standing on the Senate floor saying this is a crisis and where are the Democrats? Why aren't they helping out? Not to mention, he's not in on the negotiations. He's not in the room on the negotiations. So if this is something that's urgent, if people are really suffering and he wants to help the people, then you would think he would be sitting in that room negotiating to try to get something done. But he's choosing not to do that. So I just thought that was amazing. Almost fell off my chair when I heard him say that, because it's like, you have to be kidding me. You're the one that wanted to continue going on recess. You're the one that wanted in June to do judge confirmations instead of looking at another stimulus package. So it's just amazing to me how politicians will do that and just think that we don't even know what happened a couple of months prior to that. So really, really, really interesting. All right, so here's Stephen Mnuchin. We're going to listen. There's a couple of clips of Stephen Mnuchin.
Joining me right now over the phone is Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin. Mr. Secretary, it's always a pleasure. Thanks very much for being here.
Maria, great to be with you as well.
Of course, the president did sign several executive orders to make sure the stimulus keeps on flowing for the American people. But can you tell us where the disagreement was with the Democrats and why a deal couldn't get done last week?
Well, Maria, Mark Meadows and I left the meeting on Friday, and it was clear to us that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer were just not willing to compromise. And as a result of that, we walked out, we called the president and said, look, it's time for you to move forward with executive action. And those executive action, they're very important. It's not everything we can do with legislation, but he guaranteed that there's unemployment benefits that will go to the states. But, my view on a negotiation is you agree on the things that you can agree on, pass legislation that's good for the American public, and then come back always for another bill. And I think the Democrats are very focused on the politics. Perhaps they think that any deal is good for the president, and that's why they don't want to do it. But we agreed on money for schools, money for child care, money for small businesses, second payments on the PPP for businesses that have been particularly hard hit, more money for vaccines, hospitals. We even agreed to state and local aid, just not the ridiculous $1 trillion that they wanted.
All right. So what I found interesting of what he said. Now, I'm not saying that we're not getting another round of stimulus checks, but he did not say that they agreed on direct payments to the people. He said second payments. I'm thinking, okay, that's stimulus checks, right? No, for PPP. So just maybe that's, he just forgot to say that, but it's very interesting that was not mentioned. So I just thought I might bring that up. Now, the whole interview, he doesn't go back to stimulus checks or anything like that. So I personally think we're going to be getting stimulus checks. Everybody wants it, as far as everyone at least says they want it. So I'm sure it's on the table. We know it's $1,200. Stephen Mnuchin, even himself, a week and a half ago, said that the president is okay with $1,200. So I know we're going to see it. I think he just forgot to say it. But I just thought that was interesting that wasn't mentioned. But PPP was mentioned, right? So interesting, right? Hazard pay, didn't hear anything about hazard pay, unfortunately. I think this is a big mistake. I think it's a huge mistake that they're not even talking about hazard pay, or maybe they didn't agree upon something when it comes to hazard pay. But I think that's a tragedy in itself. So we'll have to see what's going to happen with the stimulus package. But right now, he's not saying anything about hazard pay. So I don't know. We'll have to see where that goes. But you did see that, I mean, they're willing to negotiate, and he is even willing to provide some state and local funding. So maybe bring it up. So we're now, they already said that there's $150 billion that they've allocated in the CARES Act. So add another $150 billion and then go from there, which, I think will probably work. I think what's going on, and he said it, when it comes down to it, the Democrats are trying to look forward and say, okay, a couple of years down the road, this is the revenue that we will need in order for us to stay, as far as the states, in order for us to stay where we are right now and not drop. And the governors have come out and said that they're looking at a number more of about $500 billion is what they would need. And so maybe it won't be $1 trillion, it won't be $300 billion, but maybe it will be closer to that $500 billion that the state governors are asking for. So we'll have to see where that goes. Okay, so the last clip I want to show you is Stephen Mnuchin is going to be talking about the payroll tax deferral. And like I said, he says some different things than what the president says. So I think it's very interesting. So go ahead and listen in, and then we'll talk about it.
On certain groups. I want to ask you about the payroll tax cut, because the president wants employers to stop collecting that 6.2% tax that is the employee share of Social Security taxes for many workers beginning on September 1. But there is some worry about the cost of this. Employers are talking about facing a series of costs, uncertainties, and headaches. How does that money get generated if not through this tax cut? Where does the money come from to replace it?
Well, we're going to create a level of certainty for employers that want to participate. We can't force people to participate, but I think many of small businesses will do this and pass on the benefits. I think, the president would like to do a payroll tax cut, so he'll go back to Congress when he wins the election.
All right, so very, very important, right? He's saying that the president will go back to Congress. So he's alluding to the fact that, yes, Congress is the one that has to fund this whole thing. So it's one of those situations. I'm telling you, it's a dangerous situation in the sense that you're involuntarily receiving a loan. Now, some businesses might not go along with it because they're the ones that have to withhold the payroll tax. And if they're in a situation where they're just letting it go, and then they find out, okay, well, you're going to have to pay it back, then guess what? Now they have to go to their employees and say, hey, we need to take an additional 6.2% or whatever it is from you, plus another 6.2% that normally, you normally have deducted. So that could be 12.5% that you're going to have to be paying just as a result of this if Congress doesn't come through and try to provide the funding that's needed. So very, very dangerous game, right? He's pretty much trying to force Congress to do this whole payroll tax deferral, which we already know both sides, Democrats and Republicans, they're not in favor of this. And the money will still be coming from Social Security, but they're going to top it off with money from the general fund, which I think is interesting. So we'll go ahead and continue here.
And ask Congress to have this money forgiven and have the Social Security Trust Fund fully topped up so that in no way does this impact Social Security.
All right. So, and that was the end there. So, I mean, it's this is really, really dangerous. Now, this is going to start September 1st. So we'll have to see what they do and if there's any more pushback, because I'm telling you, both sides, Republicans and Democrats, they are not for this payroll tax deferral. This is kind of a way, because Trump wanted the payroll tax cut. He wasn't able to get it. He's blaming the Democrats, but the reality is there are a lot of Republicans that weren't for it. And so that's why he had to take that off the table, because that was his red line. In June, he was saying, this is my red line. If this is not in the next stimulus package, I will not sign it. And then he came off that in July. And so we'll have to see where it goes when it comes down to it. But very interesting, right? Steve Mnuchin has one side. He says one thing. President's saying that he has the power to terminate the payroll tax, and also he's going to forgive it and all this stuff. I mean, it's amazing when you're looking at two people from the same administration and they're saying entirely different things when it comes down to it. And it might be small. You might think, oh, that's just a small difference. The president's going to go to Congress and ask them to forgive it. Well, that's a lot different than forgiving it yourself, or that's a lot different than terminating the payroll tax yourself and not going to Congress and having them terminate it. And we see right now, we see the gridlock in Congress right now. So do you think Congress is going to be on board to do this in the future? Because Trump created it, and now he doesn't have he doesn't carry the purse, so he can't pay for it himself. He's just pushing it on to Congress to handle the situation. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Now, in this same interview, and I'm not going to show the clip, but Stephen Mnuchin was just talking about potentially having having this stimulus package get negotiated and get signed, and then having another stimulus package later down the road, maybe early January, February time. So obviously this would mean that President Trump gets reelected, because if he doesn't get reelected, then he's not going to. I mean, the stimulus package might be talked about, but it's going to be talked about from another administration, not their administration. This could be what they're banking on too. They're just saying, you know what, let's get these things that we want done now, and then in the next round we can put some more stuff that you guys want, like what the Democrats want. That could be their strategy, because if they do not win in November, they don't even have to worry about it. It's no longer an issue for them. So this might be a tactic where they can try to get what they want, and then if the Democrats win, then the Democrats can go ahead and figure out whatever it is that they want in the future. So it is. I mean, it's kind of good news. I mean, it's promising news. The fact that, okay, this might not be the last stimulus package that we see. We might see another one in the future. And in yesterday's video, I did talk about the fact that Kamala Harris is now the vice presidential candidate for Joe Biden. that they might be looking at another round of stimulus checks in the future. So if they do get elected, they might be looking at something in the future. We know that Kamala Harris authored the $2,000 a month bill, so we'll have to see if that's something that might show its light in the future. So that's all I have for you guys today. Please let me know down below in the comments, do you think we're going to see another stimulus package before November? Let me know down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.